we're getting rebellious with Venom for our last dance, and we're reading the Black Box Diaries in the front room. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Adam Bourne, and this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom.
Hello and welcome back to Off Screen for another week of movies. So still to come today, we're going to look at The Front Room, we're going to look at Venom, we're going to look at Rebellious. But right now, let's dive into a documentary. So it's called Black Box Diaries, and directed, written and starring all the same person.
Yeah, Shiori Ito, who's, I think I had heard the name. To be fair, have you heard the name? Do you know Shiori Ito at all?
No. Although I recognise her from the trailer, but I've never heard her name before.
Do you know why you might recognise her, actually? For the thing she is known for, she is the Japanese face of the Me Too movement. And that's
where I recognise her.
About. The documentary is it's called Black Box Diaries. It's in reference to her memoir, Black Box. Which the story here goes that in 2017, I think it was in 2015, Shiori Ito was, I think at the time, working for Reuters in Tokyo, came forward after being sexually assaulted by a prominent TV reporter named Yamaguchi, who at the time was quite close friends with the Japanese Prime Minister. Same one who got assassinated in 2022, incidentally. 2 years later, she tried prosecuting, she tried pursuing charges, etc. Nothing happened. Not a thing happened. She came forward, she had a press conference and tried to make it a thing herself. She tried to take it on as a journalist and investigate and prove her own sexual assault. And this would form the bedrock of a campaign that would go on for years and would come to define nearly a decade of this woman's life. As I say, as all this was going on, it became a watershed moment for the Me Too movement as well. And she would become the face of that movement in that part of the world. Have a listen. This is a clip from the documentary Black Box Diaries.
I have a chance to talk about what happened to me. I'm scared, but all I want to do is talk about the truth. 私自身が全く記憶にないので、起きた時の記憶ははっきりしてます。Many people already witnessed what kind of negative reaction I've got. 証拠がないため厳しいですよね。Our justice system's not working. Without these recordings, no one would believe what I heard.
I'm assuming in this you don't find out who the high-profile offender is.
Oh, yes, you do. Yamaguchi is front and centre. It's pretty documented because he was an untouchable presenter, but also the story of this feeds very heavily into the Japanese legal system, the judicial system in Japan. Now, what you get for your money here is effectively 3 films in one. The film works on these 3 different levels. So on the one, first and foremost, you have Ito's story. You have Shiori Ito's, story herself, what she went through, her mission to prove this absolutely horrifying injustice. You then also have a story about the Japanese judicial system, about the need for change and exactly how much prodding it would take to do that. What level of support you need to force any kind of change in any society, let alone one that, I'll be honest with you, I did not know the depths of, as far as just how patriarchal and how patriarchal the system is, and how absolutely stacked against women it is. But and you've then got a third story as well, but which is the fact of the Me Too side of it, which is really the lower key of it. It plays mostly like a thriller. It literally plays like a thriller in which Shiori Ito, is being stalked, being harassed, being disbelieved, naysayers coming out of the woodwork, etc. It's really hard stuff. Like, really hard. I mean, you can imagine given the subject matter, I'm sure.
I'd imagine as well, you get to see some huge cultural differences in this between there and here or America or wherever else it might be.
Well, that was the thing for me. So I didn't know an awful lot about the Japanese judicial system. There's a really harrowing moment, especially because of how corrupt it is. There's a really harrowing moment in which one of Shiori's supporters makes the case for her in Parliament that this needs changing. And said supporter was immediately told in Parliament, please don't mention private citizens in here. And is immediately given the response, no, all we do is work for private citizens. Why am I not allowed to mention this one? And the reasoning as to why they're not allowed to mention this one is somewhat glaringly obvious. It is corruption at the absolute highest level. It's a really hard watch. There was a specific point towards the very end, and we talk about it was a relatively triumphant moment in which I was just choked up. I just absolute lump in throat stuff, and that's me watching it. I mean, this is a documentary that literally comes with a trigger warning up top. And I can understand why it needed it, to be fair. It goes into... there is a lot of description of things that will be triggering to a certain very unfortunate subset of the population. And I understand the need for that warning through, but it's one of those things that it's palpable even if you're not part of that subset of the population. It's, like I say, really harrowing, really heart-wrenching, heartbreaking stuff. And watching this woman who, as I say, she's 26 when the attack takes place. She's 28 when she tries to get it dealt with. And by the time this story concludes, she's 33. This winds up taking up 8 years of this woman's life. And as we watch it unfold, she's clearly a remarkable person. Like, she presents as a really remarkable person. The level of horror that she goes through and the dignity that she keeps about her. She loses literally everything in her life because of this story. It's watching her just remain steadfast and determined. No, I'm going to get through this. I've lost my family. I might lose my profession. I've been vilified in the press. I'm being yelled at in the street. I mean, she's literally told at one point, we don't believe you. We don't believe you've been raped because in Japan you wouldn't show your face. You know, she's told you must be a prostitute because of the outfit you're wearing. Clearly, all the usual rhetoric that you hear in there. And seeing the way in which she, conducts herself through this is both admirable and absolutely heartbreaking to see unfold. I think it's an absolutely tremendous documentary. She's directed this herself as a companion piece to the memoir, really. So it's been made... at the time with the book. The two have been made in tandem. And I would say if you are someone who has read that book, that finds it to be the impactful read that I would imagine it is. I didn't read the book, obviously. I would imagine this would flesh that out somewhat heartily for you. But it is quite an emboldening, empowering, and impactful documentary that I do think is quite unmissable. I think it's certainly one of the best things out this week, let alone I think it might be one of the better documentaries of the year. I think it's superb.
From what you're saying, it sounds like it could be on track to win an award or two then.
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked to see this come up in documentary categories after Christmas. Definitely.
Excellent. Well, don't miss the boat and go and see it now because... Box Diaries is out in cinemas from today. All right, then. Before
we go,
carry on.
We haven't done one thing. I just realised something. We haven't done a thing this week, Mr. Ball. We've got a minute remaining on blocks. We've got time to kill. If you remember, last week we reviewed a certain film, and then you went and watched a certain film after we had the conversation. Would you like to tell? Would you like to tell the listeners how you found The Wild Robot?
Oh, The Wild Robot. Well. What a fantastic movie is all I can say. Probably, and I think I said this to you, probably if not one of the best animated movies I have ever seen. It was incredible. Sat down with the whole family, and by the end of it, just as you were, we were all blubbing.
Niagara Falls, Frankie Angel.
Exactly. And I'm sat there thinking, my God, a CPU and some animated, characters has made me cry. This is incredible. But it does it. And it's just a really wholesome, heartwarming, lovely, beautiful movie. And I would urge anybody, kids or no kids, to go and watch Wild Robot if you get a chance. It's beautiful.
Didn't you say this was your son? You're the first time your son had sat and watched a full film.
Yeah. Yeah. My son's 6 and he just can't sit still. And it's the first movie he's sat in one place for from the start all the way to the end. He didn't ask questions. He didn't stop. He didn't get up. He didn't get bored. He literally was glued to it for the whole movie. And he even cried at the end as well. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I hope it is his generation's Bambi. It certainly deserves to be a contender.
I'd agree. I would absolutely agree. So, yeah, go and watch Wild Robot if you get a chance. It's absolutely worth it. It's worth every single penny. All right, we're going to look at The Front Room next. We'll see what Van thought to that in just a second. So stay where you are. So, hello and welcome back to Off Screen. We are going to dive straight in with our next movie, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what Van has to say about this. So, this one is a horror. It's called The Front Room, and it's got Brandy from Brandy and Monica of late 90s fame in. So, I'll let you take it away, Van, because you know I've got something to say on this.
Yeah, Brandy, whose surname it turns out is Norwood. Did anyone know that Brandy had a surname? I thought she was like Madonna. She was just to be fair, Madonna has a surname. It's Ciccone. But a bit of trivia there for you. If you get a pub quiz and someone asks you what Madonna's surname is.
I didn't know that.
Madonna's surname is Madonna Ciccone. There you go. I saw a terrible made-for-TV biopic once that starred Dean Stockwell as her dad, Al from Quantum Leap as Madonna's dad. Terrible movie, but it's just always nice to see Al from Quantum Leap. Anyway, The Front Room, starring Brandy, a.k.a. Brandy Norwood. This is labelled, as you just put out, horror film, right? Now, I had just checked IMDb when you said that, and it's listed as horror thriller. I would like to officially revise that. I would like to urge them to revise it to comedy thriller. Because I think that's actually how it plays. So, new movie from A24. This is one of 2 A24 movies we're going to be reviewing in 2 weeks. Because next week, Heretic is out. And A24, the art house boutique horror label, they make the good shiz, They make the good shiz. Anyway, so written and directed by Max and Sam Eggers. It has a certain elegance to the direction. It is about a heavily pregnant wife, played by Brandy, whose father-in-law passes away. She and her husband go to the funeral, and there they learn that the recently departed left behind in his will the explicit condition of you can have all my money if you take your stepmom home and let her live with you. Said stepmother is played by Catherine Hunter. Her name is Solange. Solange moves into the house, immediately decides the front room that has been made up for the baby, that's mine, that's my room now, sets herself up in there, starts putting crosses up on the wall every chance she gets, starts putting pictures of Jesus in frames everywhere, and yeah, she's, to call her devout would be somewhat of an understatement. And before you can say hand that rocks the cradle, well, the cradle's getting rocked. Have a listen to Psycho Stepmom at the dinner table, just trying to push her influence.
I have realized I do not know my granddaughter's name.
Oh, we're gonna name her Fern.
Fern? Another plant you got growing in there? No. Used to be parents understood the name's gotta have power. How about a family name?
Well, my mother's name was Gertrude.
Gertrude? I thought you all supposed to have more interesting names.
What is that supposed to mean?
I'm not trying to be insulting.
No, I want to know what is a more interesting name?
Your father, what was his name?
Walter. But I didn't know him really well.
Call that a broken family.
Solange, would you please stop?
I'm sorry. I just can't get over Brandy. Now, every movie I've seen her in, I just don't buy it. I just don't rate her as an actress.
No, she's a terrible actress. Right, here's the thing no one wants to say about Brandy. Right, okay, Brandy, fine musician, okay? The Boy Is Mine's a banger. We all love The Boy Is Mine, right? She couldn't act for Toffee in the 90s. And I can hand on heart say she has not improved anywhere near in 2024, okay? She's terrible. As is Andrew Burnap, who plays the on-screen husband, who is the most milquetoast soy boy beta cuck you can imagine. So much so that they literally name him Norman. Like that kind of level. You know what I mean? And then there's, of course, Catherine Hunter. Now, Catherine Hunter as Solange, no joke, owns every single one of the 94 minutes that make up this film. She's fantastic. Not in the way that you'd expect, but more just, she's hilarious. She's absolutely brilliant. She's starring in a different movie to everyone else who's in this movie. And she's owning it. You've heard the insane voice that she's pulling in that clip. I mean, there are lines of dialogue in this that you are not going to believe that you've heard said aloud by an actual human person. No joke. I watched this with Faith the other night, and we were just falling out of our chairs laughing. So much, because we watched it on Link. So much so that the following day we were talking to one of her mates, one of the mates in the Home Office, and we were telling her about this film. We had to show her the trailer. Now, as far as I know, whilst I was off watching Heretic, they then sat and watched it again together, and again laughed their arses off. It is hysterically bad. It is one of the worst movies of the year, and yet it's so bad that it tips over into good, anchored entirely by Solange, entirely by Catherine Hunter's performance, and some of the absolutely barking mad things that they have this old lady do. And she's a wonderful caricature with the dub. She's got a cane in each arm, can barely walk. She likes to break wind on people, and she has that voice. Incidentally, if you're squeamish about scatological things in films, avoid this like the plague. There's a frankly terrifying amount of, because obviously it involves like an elderly, infirm, and incontinent woman. So there's a lot in there, but it's a classical Hand That Rocks the Cradle gaslighting thriller. It just happens to be a particularly terribly bad one, but one that, as a result, is unintentionally funny. I mean, it really made me want to revisit The Hand That Rocks the Cradle to see it done right. But other than that, it's cringe-inducingly bad. It's a movie that you can't believe passed the muster to actually get put out under the A24 label, because it's far and away the worst thing they've ever put the A24 badge on, and yet you have such a good time laughing with it and just taking the Michael out of it, and things like that you can't possibly poo-poo it, pun intended, given the scatological nature of the film. You know what I mean? You know that you've watched a few of these. You know, these so bad they're good kind of movies.
Yeah, no, I absolutely have. I'm just wondering whether Solange was meant to be the comedy side of it, or if it was all meant to be deadly serious, and actually she just does it best.
Absolutely, it can't be. But it's not an outwardly funny movie. It's not like an acknowledgedly funny movie. It's one of those that's funny only because it's just. What did you say?
So one funny because they're trying to be so serious, but actually they're really bad at being serious.
Yeah, they're committing to the bit, and it doesn't work at all. Like, nothing about the film works unless you take it as a comedy. As a spoof or satire of a Hand That Rocks the Cradle style thriller, it might actually be borderline genius. But it's very obvious that that's not intentionally the case. Not intentionally. I mean, like I say, one of the worst movies of the year, but I will absolutely watch it again. I mean, I'll watch this before I ever see, I don't know, Joker, Folia 2 or Megalopolis again. You know what I mean? It's one of those. I'll see. I've been recommending it to friends because I've got a lot of friends who enjoy bad movies. Like when I lived in Sheffield, we used to have word I can't say, for broadcast purposes, movie nights. S-word movie night we used to have, in which we would literally get like 6 movies. 4 of them would usually star Nicolas Cage, and we just marathon them all with, junk food and just catering and drink. And this would absolutely be a film that we would do that with. Case Allen, who used to sit in your chair years ago, he was a big fan of this. We watched things like Shark Attack 3 and things like that together because we just loved taking the mick out of films that were this bad. It was enjoyable. This would have been the highlight of one of those nights. If we had put this in a stack of 6 terrible movies and barreled through them all, this would have been the one you came away with and gone, that's the one. That's the one I'll watch again. That was a little gem, that one. But for all of the wrong reasons.
Well, you've made me want to watch it for that reason alone. I just want to watch it now and laugh and look for all the really bad acting.
Absolutely do. So I'd say brandy has not gotten better in 3 decades. Let's put it that way.
Maybe you need a bottle of it before you watch it. That might help. So, if you want to watch The Front Room, you can, because it's in cinemas from today. Right, still to come, Venom, The Last Dance, and also we're going to look at Rebellious in a bit as well. Stay where you are. Hello and welcome back to Offscreen. We've still got Rebellious to look at very soon, but right now we are going to dive into the world of Venom, The Last Dance. Van, you saw it last night. Over to you.
Did you ever see the first 2 Venoms? Did you see Venom and Let There Be Carnage? Have you seen these?
I've seen the first, but not the second, I think.
So if I describe them as the mask for angry teenagers, would you sort of go with that?
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Tom Hardy, who has is Eddie Brock, the journalist, has the alien symbiote that's attached itself to him, and although he eats bad guys' heads, he does it in the name of, Eddie talks him into doing it in the name of, good guys. This third movie follows on from the sort of the fallout of the second one, where I think Stephen Graham's cop character had been killed during the events. I had forgotten this, incidentally. Stephen Graham's character had died during the events of the second movie. Spoilers for a 3-year-old movie. And Eddie is now on the run, having been essentially framed for this murder. He's blamed for the murder. I think Woody Harrelson did it in the second movie. And whilst he is on the run from human authorities, the Venom symbiote finds himself on the run at the same time when the creator of the alien symbiotes from millions of years ago decides he wants out of the prison cell that his children put him in, and the only way out of that is a key, which magically exists in the DNA of Eddie and Venom. And this is where it starts to get even more contrived. Exists because in the first movie, Tom Hardy died and Venom brought him back to life. And apparently, if this ever happens, it creates this magical key. And so the whole gimmick here is that they can track Venom on Earth, but only when he's in Venom form. So Tom Hardy's forced to go on the run as a fugitive using only basically the voice and limbs of Venom. It's about as daft as it sounds. Have a listen.
My home has found us. We have something my creator needs. It's a key that would free him. He will kill us all. There will be nothing left.
There's an army coming that cannot be beaten.
We may not make it out of this alive, buddy.
I will annihilate your world.
I mean, I'm all for these kind of sci-fi action-adventure movies. I love Iron Man, for example, but this one just sounds way too complicated for me.
Actually, it's not the problem. Probably isn't that it's complicated. Probably it's just a mess. It's very basic, but it's muddled at the same time. And it's a directorial debut of Kelly Marcel, who's also written the screenplay for this. Kelly Marcel was the screenwriter who adapted 50 Shades of Grey for the big screen. This is a directorial debut. So from grey to black, you know what I mean? Because Venom. It's not a great movie to make your debut on. Because, I mean, it's just about capably enough directed. It's very what I would describe as typically studio muddled, in that everything is far too close up, everything is far too in the mix, and you don't quite get the coherence that you need from it. The story's garbage, the script is nonsense. The effects are just oddly weak. Like, they keep doing this, and they do this in the other two as well. All three movies have done this. This weird effect they do, where they shoot Tom Hardy from the front, and they have Venom's tentacles like come out of his back, but it literally just looks like they have stuck the shot of Tom Hardy into a computer, masked him, and then just put everything behind him. And it looks so basic and crap, and it's never convincing. It's literally never. It looks like something an AI filter has come up, like you would do on Insta stories or TikTok or some nonsense like that. But for some reason, we do it in like $100 million superhero movie, which incidentally is the only saving grace of these for Sony, as far as I can tell. Is they don't seem to cost very much. Like the third one of these has cost about 150, 160 mil, I think, and the first one was 100 mil. They've gone up incrementally because they have actually made money by keeping the costs down, so they have been profitable. As with before, the only real reason to see like Venom, this new Venom, if there is a reason, is the sort of enjoyably twitchy and bizarre performance and silly accent from Tom Hardy. Like, he's obviously having fun. Like, you enjoy a bit of Tom Hardy, right?
Yeah, I do, absolutely. So what do you mean silly accent, though? What silly accent does he do?
He's doing that voice, you know, that Tom Hardy, that Tom Hardy. I don't know what part of America I'm from, you know. It's all kind of marbles. You're like, what are you doing?
Oh no! So he needs to choose a part of America and stick to it, really.
He does, but when I say the weird thing is, like, I don't know if you ever noticed this, and because both Venom movies, this goes out on Friday, October the 25th. It's worth noting that in the UK, Venom is on telly tomorrow night, and Venom 2 is on Sunday night. And if you catch either of them, the very first thing you'll notice, you won't be able to unsee this now that I've pointed it out, by the way, is Tom Hardy always looks confused, like he's always doing this face. He's always doing a squint every time. At one point in the movie, they explain that he's meant to be hungover. Like, at the very beginning, he's meant to be hungover. You're like, it's the only thing that explains it in this case. But was he hungover in the other two as well? And also, how long is this damn hangover? Because it's going on for the entire movie. He just has this squinting, confused look. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point. I know. But it's just one of those things. Supporting cast here. Juno Temple from Ted Lasso. The other actor from Ted Lasso, whose name I forget, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Rhys Ifans, Ilana Yuba, and you're looking at all these people thinking, did you get given the script before you signed on? Because it very much, every single one of them, this feels like this is a paycheck gig. And you are aware of it all the way through. Now, and when I say all the way through, this incident is 109 minutes. It's 109 minutes, and that's worth pointing out because the last one was about 90. And it was very clear the last one had been hacked to the bone. This one has been edited by someone who I think is very much trying to chuck water out of the sinking boat. Right. To an extent. And you get this impression because there's a moment in the trailer. If you've got the IMDb page up in front of you, this is the sequence you're going to be seeing played on mute, in which Venom and Eddie are on the top of an airliner. They're on the top of a plane as a space dog, for lack of a better term, attacks them. And this entire sequence, right, and this is just literally technical filmmaking stuff. That entire sequence, from the establishing shot of Eddie riding an airplane with Venom, to the dog attacking them, to them actually taking the thing out and dropping off the plane, takes about 80 seconds. 90 seconds max. And you start thinking, like, you're all really bad at this. Like, there's no establishing shot. There's no... The action sequence is pretty much like two punches up close. You can't tell who's doing who. And... like, what are you doing? You've not established any of this. You don't know how to frame it. You don't know how to block it, how to put it in perspective. There is nothing to this. You have literally staged this like a video game cutscene for the particularly ADHD stricken. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, it really feels like it's been cut together. In this case, not like the last one, which was hacked to the bone, presumably just because, look, we simply haven't got a film here. Can you just make one out of the edit? This has been hacked. This has been hacked down to literally appease those who don't have the attention span, but still need a longer, fuller movie. So 109 minutes versus the 90 last time. Say, it's not as bad as Venom, Let There Be Carnage, but it's a damn sight. Say, it's not as bad as that, but it's nowhere near as good as the first one. I still think the first one is the only one of these that really worked, and that's because it was the mask for angry teenagers.
Is there anything good about this one?
There's some interesting needle drops. I quite like the use of Cat Stevens' Wild World, and and David Bowie's Space Oddity and things like that. So this might be the one of these that has the best soundtrack. But I mean, and to be fair, there is no theme song that goes quite as hard as Eminem's Venom from the first one. Like that's still a high watermark. So I'll go with the soundtrack. And like I say, Tom Hardy is amusing. Like he's the only justification to watch these.
He's amusing.
Well, I took Faith with me, and she did point out that Tom Hardy only really delivered on the sexy front in a short scene in which he appears in a tuxedo, and she was quite vocal about this. I will also say, incidentally, that one of my favourite things about these movies is that every time they do the Venom voice, I keep thinking of... did you ever see Eddie Murphy's Raw from 1987, the stand-up show?
Yes.
Yeah, the one from which you cannot repeat much content nowadays.
Yes.
It hasn't aged well. But there's a bit in it in which he discussed his fantasy African wife, and he does a voice. And it's the Venom voice. And because of how often Venom says the name Eddie, it's, Eddie, I would like to talk to you. And I keep thinking it's Eddie Murphy doing it. One of those things. It's not one of the worst movies of the year. I mean, it's not even in the top 20 worst movies of the year. It's not as bad as The Front Room, but it's also not as fun as The Front Room. It has to be said. But yeah, this is one for the Venom obsessies only. Anyone else is going to sit there about half an hour into this thing. What the hell am I watching? You'll chuckle a few times. It is vaguely amusing. But it is absolute bilge. It is absolute nonsense. I'm glad it's over, though, because it does have a sense of finality to it. So give it that.
Well, you can make your own mind up, because Venom: The Last Dance is out in cinemas from today. We're going to talk about Rebellious next and see what Van thought of that. Stay where you are. Hello and welcome back to Offscreen for one last ride then. We are going to dive into the movie called Rebellious, which is out in cinemas from today. Now, this is animated, so I'm kind of into animated movies now after watching Wild Robot last week.
Well, I can promise you that this is not a patch on the Wild Robot. Very, very different ends of the spectrum here. This is right. I'm going to say there's a lot that I'm going to say about this that is going to sound really negative, but I want to just underline as I say all this as well. It's superbly well animated. Can't figure that one out. It's breathtakingly animated, like really well done, like a cut above. But anyway, okay, so. Set in some mythical fairy tale kingdom that sort of looks like the one from Frozen or Tangled, and features a princess named Mina, who's sort of drawn like someone from Tangled or Frozen, who, has her father is the king. She has a boyfriend named Ronan, who's the thinker in the village, who wants nothing more than to, marry her, and father wants her to marry a warrior type, and then gets talked around, and on the cusp of announcing their engagement, a dragon swoops in and takes her away at the behest of an evil wizard. Of which I have so much to say, by the way, about that evil wizard.
Does she sing "Let Me Go" when the dragon takes her away?
Thankfully, there is no singing. That's something I will say. There's no singing in the movie. Anyway, so the would-be suitors for... The king then declares that anyone who rescues Mina will get to rule the kingdom, will get to marry her and rule the kingdom. Our romantic lead, Ronan, sets off on his merry. In pursuit, of course, are three aggressively alpha male type suitors who are obviously setting about on the quest on their own through their various different ways. One of them is a glutton, the other one is all vanity stricken, the other one is more macho type, and obviously pitfall to their own. They're all destined to be hoisted upon their own petard, and it's a race to see who can get to Mina first, who meanwhile finds herself locked in the middle of this sorcerer's little would-be kingdom, surrounded by frozen statues of all of the princesses who have turned him down before. Have a listen.
Mina, will you marry...
Oh,
no. Me?
Today is a great day. Today, my only daughter, Mina, is to be married.
Look! It's a dragon! Ronan! I wanna be heard all over the world. Hear me call.
You kidnapped me.
You sure she comes from a good family? Because she behaves like a barbarian.
You're messing with the wrong girl, Keza Boring.
Whoever rescues Mina will have her hand in marriage.
Put her in the cage now.
Dream on.
Let her go.
Hey, that music has a slight Frozen vibe to it as well. But I'm just looking at the kind of screenshot actually, and I see what you mean. She does look like Anna. Is it Anna? However you pronounce it.
Anna or Elsa. I remember the pair of them, but not them individually.
Elsa. It's Elsa. Yes,
Elsa.
She looks like Elsa.
Yeah. There's a lot of that going on. And the actual design of the movie is such that when they start introducing other princesses, they are all patently lifted and reworked designs of very specific Disney princesses. There is one, for instance, who is literally there is a redhead literally wearing the Merida dress from Brave. There is one who is clearly Pocahontas. There is one who is a slightly darker skinned Jasmine. There is, there's an Elsa. There's one of everyone in there in the background. You're like, oh, you're not really being subtle about this at all. The thing is, the film is nowhere near clever enough to pull it off. It's quite a dull film. It's quite dull and unengaging, and it does feel like a sort of going through the motions riff that's really been designed to be put onto DVDs or streaming, obviously, nowadays, as quickly as possible so that they can placate the kids who've simply gotten bored of just replaying Tangled and Frozen over and over. And Tangled would probably be the one that it sits closest to in terms of the dynamics and character archetypes and things. The Kezabor, I think his name is, the sorcerer villain in this, is at one point referred to as being Turkish. And, I have to point out, this is a British Cypriot co-production. Right, so him being Turkish makes a degree of sense, because if there's a Cypriot component in the making of it, fair enough. Okay, I understand. Turkish component. They have, however, pretty much stopped the research there. He is otherwise just, quote unquote, Arab coded, as I would say. He is just a generic Arab. That is all they have gone for here. And it's really something. It's a very lazy character design. Everything about it is predictable as toffee. Like, every single time they introduce some new thing, you're like, I wonder if they're going to introduce a MacGuffin as lazy as ... And then that's the MacGuffin they introduce. Like, it's that kind of thing. All I will say is, it is, again, 94 minutes long. The exact same length as The Front Room. The Front Room, way more fun. Way more fun. I'd argue even children have more fun with The Front Room than they will with this. I found Rebellious, incidentally, the full title of which is Rebellious Mission Royal Rescue. Terrible subtitle. This is just not very good. I mean, just wait and see this on Netflix about a week from now would be my honest guess. This is a cheap, well, not right, it's cheap and cheerful, I will say, but not especially any good. Kind of an animated throwaway effort that's clearly destined for streaming.
Is the story arc not even half decent, or is the whole premise just rubbish?
By the time it actually gets to its third act and its conclusion, you don't care. You really don't. This isn't an age thing, because obviously I enjoy the first Frozen very much. I think the second's dire. But yeah. Tangled, I really like Tangled. I would call this Retangled. Or Tangled Up Again, or something like that.
Or Get Tangled.
Get Tangled. But, I mean, the only rebellious act, the only thing rebellious about the movie Rebellious is the act of actually making it through to the end of it. Because conventional wisdom will tell you, I could be doing literally anything else in the world. And I would advise, listen to that voice in your head when it tells you that. There's no name voices or anything in it, by the way.
Yeah, no, I did notice that, actually. I mean, maybe that's part of its downfall, apart from the scripting of it. But you can make your own mind up. It's in cinemas from today. Just look for Rebellious, or do what Van said and wait a few weeks and watch it on Netflix for essentially free. Exactly. It doesn't really matter then if you don't like it, does it? All right, well, before we disappear this week, let's have a little nosy forwards at what we're going to be talking about next week. What have you got to watch in between now and then?
Well, next week we have Sean Baker's new film, Honora, which this is being really touted as an Oscar baby. Like, this stars Mikey Madison from the Scream movies, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was meant to be a really big deal. We've also got the documentary, and this is meant to be a real tearjerker, Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. That's next week. We've got the new war movie with Ian Glenn, I think it's called The Last Front. Animated effort called Super Claus, which I think is in reference to Santa Claus. Steve McQueen, 12 Years a Slave, Widows director Steve McQueen is back with a new World War II movie called Blitz, which stars our girl Saoirse Ronan. We've got Cillian Murphy's first role since Oppenheimer is next week. The movie Small Things Like These, and a movie I watched last night and I'm so going to enjoy talking to you about. The Hugh Grant horror movie is out next week, Heretic, and you should... I just start looking forward to that, Adam. Start looking forward to it.
I really rate Hugh Grant, actually. What was the movie that he was in that I spoke to you about where he played the London gangster?
Oh, The Gentleman.
That's it, The Gentleman. Like, after watching that, I was like, you're absolutely an amazing actor, because it really shows off like a different side to him and how he can create characters other than the Hugh Grant character that he plays in most other movies. I just massive respect for him for that.
Oh, absolutely. But let's not forget his greatest contribution to the pantheon of Western cinema, Paddington 2.
Oh,
I mean, come on. Paddington 2 is the greatest movie ever made. We all know this. It's just not even a question. Anyway, so we've got a good week next week anyway.
All of those to look forward to on next week's episode. That is, of course, all we have time for this week. We will return next week. Until then, I've been Adam Ball.
I've been Van Connor, and we shall be back.